Hello and hi. Welcome back to your newest, favoriteest, laziest Hunter x Hunter channel. My name's Taffer, and today we're going to be talking about our good old pal, Nick, and specifically his Guardian Spirit Beast that is responsible for Parallel Universe. Because this is relevant again, and people are espousing a lot of dumb shit about how the ability works. Because spoiler alert, we still don't know how it works. There's a lot of things, in fact, that we don't know how it works. And if anybody is definitively telling you how it works, they're wrong. They're trying to sell you a bridge and they're clickbaiting you. I'm sorry, it's just the way it is. But uh, I've done a lot of thinking, of mapping, and I think I have a pretty good layout for how the ability works as far as we know, as well as looking into how things have changed in recent chapters. So if that all sounds fun to you, stick around, like, comment, subscribe, do all the buttons. I will also be holding a chapter group discussion live stream for 417 on Sunday. That is tomorrow after this goes out. Should be around 12, it should start around 12 to 1 p.m. Eastern. I'll make a YouTube post and do all that stuff if you want to know exact time. But to get to the video, as I said before, Parallel Universe, the fuck is this chart? This chart is scary. It makes me upset. And it's confusing legitimate horse shit. But, it's actually not as complicated as I think the ability first seems. And most confusion that, in my eyes, stems from the two facts that us, the reader, learn about the ability alongside Serenik and learn and, think about his incorrect hypotheses as he figures out his ability. And the other thing is that people, especially YouTubers, they like extrapolating, horse piss from horse cock, to be crude. They say a lot of stuff that just isn't true, but, like, who cares? Because it gets the clicks, right? And that's what matters at the end of the day. But before I go into, going into very deep detail about how the ability works, I think it is prudent to at least go through okay, guys, you guys aren't supposed to look at what website that is. It didn't embed correctly, but, like, I'm not using that. This is official, all right? I want to quick walk through 385 and 387, which are the two chapters where the first usage of Parallel Universe takes place. All right, it's gonna be a pretty quick run through, so don't worry about me being here for like 20 minutes. All right. From Serenik's perspective, we see that once he closes his eyes and attains Zetsu, that he gets this weird, like, third person vision of the future events. And we also see that once he loses Zetsu or opens his eyes, that he returns back to the real world, and the events that he had perceived in the future are what the people around him perceive, right? In the vision, Serenik, he comes out of Zetsu and he's like, and he's like, oh, there's something on your shoulder. And then he's talking to Theta and is like, hey, is anything different? And she's not responding. You know why? Because she didn't know that happened. She did not see that. She just saw what she saw. She saw what she saw. Fucking awesome, man. It's in the chapter, right? They're talking past each other. What Serenik perceives is the future, but once he exits the vision, he can make new events, but those around him are only able to perceive the future that Serenik viewed, right? And we get to see some more use cases of it. And at the very, very end, Serenik, he goes into Zetsu for a long time, like more than 45 minutes, at least. We don't exactly know. We see that he can go into the ability, out, and then back in seamlessly. And we get one last little tidbit, our last usage of the ability that we ever see. Well, I guess until very recently. Um, and he's about to get shot. He opens his eyes. He moves out of the way to dodge, and then a flute melody flute melody by Melody happens. Jesus. And wow, would you look at that? Theta thinks she thought she shot Serenik, but she didn't. Uh-oh. And she's very upset. Who knows what happens? And we get Serenik's, confirmation of how he thinks his ability works. All right, and that's the scary chart that everyone talks about. But we're gonna go into a little more depth. All right, if you just want to know, like, the simplest, most basic way to think of the ability, this is what I got for you. All right, it is that the ability is to look 10 seconds into the future from the current real world time. If Sari wants to change his actions from what he foresaw, he can do so by opening his eyes and changing his actions in the current real world. But whenever Sari opens his eyes and returns back to reality, the people immediately around Sari perceive the next 10 seconds of reality as Sari did in the future vision, right? The people around Serenik are viewing the alternate future, the one that Sari had perceived with his future vision, while Sari's new actions are completely imperceivable to those around them until the 10-second alternate timeline illusion ends for them, in which case their reality snaps back to the real reality, right? This is the most basic definition. And as I say here, it is likely kind of wrong, but it is good enough for a starting base point, right? But now comes the big part, and that is being as annoyingly specific and granular as we can possibly be. The ability is multi-phase, or at the very least multi-stepped. And the base condition of the ability being active and initiated is being in complete Zetsu with closed eyes. All right. That is what is required. And to make my points in the coming segments easier to understand, we're going to be using some notation. We're going to be using some good old notation. All right. The default branch of events in red here is the default timeline and series of events that will occur if Sari doesn't intervene. This is the real world that just happens, and whenever Sari goes into his future vision, this is the world that he perceives. All right. It is the default branch. The new branch of events is the new timeline of events Sari creates by opening his eyes and changing his actions from the default branch of events, all right? He opens his eyes, and everyone around him is perceiving the default branch of events illusion, while Sari is doing whatever he wants. All of his new stuff, that's in the new branch. It's the new reality, all right? And the E10, what I'm going to be using here, is the ephemeral 10 seconds Serenik obtains upon ability initiation, right? That is this part where he goes from 0 to 11 immediately. Those are the ephemeral 10 seconds. And then also we're going to be adding a time notation. T equals 0 is the initiation of the ability. And if Sari has only viewed his E10 and nothing more, he would still be at, he would have seen the future up to t equals 10 seconds in the future, but he would still be at t equals 0. And if 5 seconds have passed in the real world, then Sari would be looking in the future at t15, and the real world would be at t5, right? That's what we see here. The E10, there is no 10-second mark because Serenik immediately goes from 0 to 10, right? And you can see he's plus 10 seconds on reality. That is how we understand the ability to work. And the way that I kind of think about the ability is that it is split up into three distinct steps, or maybe 2.5, depending on how you look at things. All right. And our first phase is the startup phase, also known as the ephemeral 10-second phase, initiation phase, whatever you want to call it, something along those lines. And, the core conceit of Sari's ability is him perceiving reality 10 seconds ahead of the real world. That is the base concept of his ability. And, with this viewpoint, we could kind of think of the ephemeral 10 seconds as being the initial revving up of engines, an initial step that is responsible for building Serenik's time lead. All right, this is the thing that has to happen first before anything else. Once Sari achieves his ability condition, Zetsu with closed eyes again, he receives an instantaneous precognition of the next 10 seconds. All right. The E10 vision is of Sari's immediate, default, and untampered with future. It is the next 10 seconds of the default branch of events that will occur without intervention. The E10 vision itself takes no real-world time for Sari to view, meaning that once he finishes it, t equals 0 is still true. All right? And even though the E10 takes no real-world time, Sari still experiences his E10 as if he had actually lived through those 10 seconds. And finally, once Sari's instant E10 vision reaches its conclusion, he perceives a moment of static in his vision, which indicates that the E10 is over and that time in the real world has begun progressing normally. And it is at this point where Sari can choose to open his eyes, which will create a new branch of events, or he could choose to continue viewing the future, letting the default branch of events that he had just perceived begin to play out in the real world around him, right? This is all the very blank period right here and getting into the initiation of the ability. But I have some extra info slash answers to some common questions or other points of concern that some people might have. During any future vision, including the E10, Sari is able to view the actions of those around him, at least in front of him, as well as his own actions in the future 10 seconds through like what looks like a third person view, like a camera's behind him, right? And we also know that this view can kind of shift or at least tilt and pan to give Sari the viewpoint he desires. We see, I wonder if I can, let's see if I can very quick pull it up. We can see in 387, it is looking at Sari here, or Theta there. But when she walks to go pick up the coffee thing, we can see that the camera that we're looking through, the viewpoint, adjusts to have her still be in frame, and then again tilts back down when Theta comes back, right? That is part of the ability. And this is like unconfirmed, obviously, but I think it's pretty certain that the third person view that Sari receives is from the scary this looking puppet thing, the 666 Nen Beast. I think as most people are referring to it now. Um, the beast is not from the seed urn ceremony. It is one that Serenik conjured all on his own. And the beast's first and only appearance was in chapter 384, and the next chapter, 385, is it's the Theta POV chapter of Parallel Universe. And so, like, I mean, you introduce the Nen Beast the only time we've seen it, and then the next chapter, Sari unveils his new ability. I mean, come on, I think that's pretty certain. And then another thing that I see people talking about is the reason Sari feels like he can't move during the E10 is because the E10 vision is of the default branch of events that will occur if Sari doesn't intervene, right? Like why would he need to move in the future events? Like he could just move. Like he can't, there's no point in him being able to manipulate the default branch because that is the default branch. That is what he is living in, right? He needs to experience and know what happens in the untampered next 10 seconds to be able to decide if he wants to slash needs to change it. And, this is some conjecture on my part, but I also think it's pretty highly likely that Sari's ability has to map out the next 10 seconds of the default branch to be able to pass that perception to those around whenever Sari creates a new branch. Like to pass an illusion, you kind of have to know what the illusion contains. You know what I mean? And now we can kind of move on to step 2, which is kind of just an extension of step 1. And it's just maintaining the parallel universe, maintaining future vision. And at this point, time is progressing normally in the real world, and Sari is still maintaining his 10-second future vision lead. So, if the real world was at t equals 15, Sari would be viewing the world at t equals 25. The plus 10 seconds is a constant. Sari can likely stay in this state of his ability for as long as he really wants. We've seen him in it for close to an hour at this point. Like, we don't know exact, but it appears that he only like has to exit if he chooses to or is forced to, right? And we know that the only way to exit his future vision and initiate a new branch of events is if he stops meeting the base ability condition, which is Zetsu with closed eyes, right? And, the not of an and statement is an or statement. And so this means that for Sari to exit future vision, he either needs to lose Zetsu or he needs to open his eyes, right? Either condition is fine. Both doesn't change anything. Just one of them is all he needs. And now we move on to our last phase of the ability, which is the creation of a new branch of events. The moment Sari exits his plus 10-second future vision of the default branch of events, he returns to experiencing the same time in the real world along with everyone else around him. Sari returns to t equals plus 0 seconds. This is to say, his time is the exact same as everyone else's time. The next 10 seconds of the default branch of events that Sari had perceived before terminating his vision now play out for everyone around Sari. The 10 seconds everyone besides Sari perceive, feel, and experience, I'm going to be referring to as the default branch illusion, just for clarity's sake, upcoming. While everyone around Serenik is experiencing the default branch illusion, Serenik can move and do whatever he wants as his new action / new branch of events are imperceivable to those experiencing a default branch illusion. And once the 10-second default branch illusion finishes playing for everyone, their perception of reality snaps back to the new, actual reality of the new branch of events that Serenik took. And at this point, once the 10-second default branch illusion is over, Parallel Universe has completed. It is inactive. It is over. But at the end of 387, through Serenik's own words, if his future vision is active and he opens his eyes and maintains Zetsu, when he closes his eyes again, he goes straight back to his future vision state. The, complete veracity of this, I don't exactly know. Like whether him going back includes the E10 startup or if that maintains, I don't know. If he can re-enter his future vision while a default branch illusion is playing is unknown, and like, does he have to wait for it to finish playing before he can re-enter future vision? Who knows? I mean, there's a lot. We've only seen this ability used once from two different perspectives, and so based on this is based on the chapter and this chart, this is everything that I can map out that I think most people should agree on as how the ability functions, right? He has the E10 startup. He's then in parallel with the real world, seeing 10 seconds ahead. And whenever he terminates the ability by either releasing Zetsu or opening his eyes, he then goes back to the normal reality. And the people around Serenik, they live the next 10 seconds as Serenik had seen them with his plus 10-second future vision. And once those 10 seconds are over, they are back to the normal reality. Well, normal reality in the sense that Serenik has changed what has happened, but it is the default, like, normal series of events, right? So everyone around Serenik, all of a sudden, they just see time play out, and then suddenly, shit is different. Serenik is not dead. What the fuck is happening, right? And Serenik, within the, when people are in the default branch illusion, he can just do whatever he wants. His actions are completely and fully imperceivable. And then once it's fully dismissed, he can re-enter the diagram from the right. That is how we know the ability to work. And, I want to highlight some things that we definitely don't know. And, as I said, like, can Siri reinitiate his ability if people are currently affected by a default branch illusion, right? Like, can he chain that together? Additionally, could Siri frame perfect initiate parallel universe the moment a default branch illusion ends? If he can, what would happen if he opens his eyes immediately after the E10 ends? In this case, like, no real world time has passed, and those affected by a default branch illusion seamlessly jump to another different default branch illusion. And that, I have to imagine, is trippy and scary as hell. What is the aura cost here? Like, we have no idea what it is. Like, does Siri bank his aura into his beast over time? And then, like, once he activates Parallel Universe, it, like, the ability extracts the aura from the beast bank? Like, we don't really know how that works. If someone who wasn't present when Siri created a default branch illusion walked into the room while others were still inside the default branch illusion, like, would the newly arrived person see Sari's new actions? Or would they also, like, retroactively be put into the default branch illusion? And then the final question is, can Sari extend the default branch illusion longer than 10 seconds? That is the very big question. And, if you haven't read chapter 417 yet, you might want to click off the video. This should be going up, less than a day before the new chapter officially comes out. So if you haven't read it, please leave. And we're going to talk about it. In 417, it very, very, very much appears that Benjamin and everyone else were held within a default branch illusion for much longer than 10 seconds, right? And as far as we understand, a default branch illusion can only last 10 seconds, where once it ends, everyone affected, returns back to normal reality. And what if I were to blow your mind and actually say, we've seen a default branch illusion last more than 10 seconds before? Yes, we have. It is a thing that we have seen and a thing that is true. Let me pull up my very official, very good little fucking chapters over here. 385 is on the left, 387 is on the right, an FYI. And, from how we know the ability to work, we're going to look at 387 first. Sari 10 seconds in the future, sees that he gets shot in the head, and immediately opens his eyes, right? That means when Serenik gets the bullet in the head, that is in exactly 10 seconds from now, right? And so we see Sari dodge out of the way, and then we get to see some speakers about the flute ceremony. Of course, they just still seeing me standing there. She's gonna think she actually shot me, and she shoots, right? And then melody, her song plays, and they're in the trance, and then it ends, right? But there's a bit of a discrepancy here, right? Because if the ability only works for 10 seconds, if the default branch illusion only lasts 10 seconds, I bumped my mic there, I'm sorry. Um, why is it that Theta, in her perception of the events, sees Serenik completely fall over and onto the ground before the melody trance starts, right? That is not how the sequence of events that we see, because in Serenik's perception, immediately after the bullet fires, the trance starts. There is no time for Serenik to fall down because, in the perception of reality that Serenik viewed, he didn't get a chance to fall down because it was exactly 10 seconds. Because he initiated a new branch. He exited the ability right when he got shot. There's no more time beyond that. There's no time of illusion for Theta to perceive of Serenik falling over. That is just not a thing that should have happened, right? And maybe Melody's doing some shenanigans here, maybe not. I don't particularly prescribe to that, subscribe to that. Fuck me, because I have a better idea. I have a nasty little theory for nasty little people. All right, this is nasties only. Get out if you don't want to know. This is about what I've said before, because the only times we've seen the default branch illusion are both when Sari has maintained parallel universe for a substantial amount of time, over 45 minutes, likely. We see that when in 387, with Serenik, being in Zetsu for an hour at that point. And we see it in 417 with Serenik already having been in Zetsu for a period of time before martial law was declared, which was well before Benjamin, stormed his room, right? And so maybe the amount of time Sari spends within his parallel universe affects the length of time a default branch illusion lasts. Maybe if he's in it for a long time and then doesn't reinitiate another illusion or parallel universe instance, the default branch illusion lasts longer, maybe. But I think I have a much better and more fun idea. All right. And this is your last chance. All right. This is nasties only inside. All right. If you're not nasty, turn back. And there's actually one more similarity that both scenes share in 387 and 417. And that is that Sari dies within the default branch illusion. All right. I think it is more likely and way, 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 way more fun if there's some shenanigans that happen with the default branch illusion when Serenik dies within it that causes it to last longer, or for the events of the default branch illusion to bleach into the real world or something along those lines, right? The first use case with Theta, the fact that it lasted over more than 10 seconds was actually covered up by Melody's solo that happened right as a default branch illusion would have normally ended. That's why we didn't exactly perceive it. But this idea of Serenik tricking people by basically playing dead also fits so fucking well with all the Jesus imagery that Sari has been given so far. I mean, Jesus famously, if you didn't fucking know, he died for 3 days and then came back to life. He came back from the dead. That is the thing that he does, and that is the thing Serenik does, right? Is that not perfect? Does that not just make you want to say, oh my god, Togashi, you're good at writing? Does that not make you want to say, oh my gosh, Taffer, you're smart for pointing that out? That makes a lot of sense. And you know what? Thank you. That does make a lot of sense. I do think it makes sense. Additionally, if you subscribe to Voracious Drake's Soemono side dish theory, there's all sorts of really juicy, succulent shenanigans that could come of this. I love this idea. I think this is what happens. I think if Sari dies within a branch illusion or from the future that he perceives, that very much affects his ability. I think that is very much going to play into it. I think it is pretty integral to what we're going to see play out soon. All right. And that's all I got for today right now. If you're wondering why, this is some outro shit. If you don't care about the video anymore, click off. If you're wondering why I took so long to get this video out, I got sick, my throat got fucked, and then I was helping out a friend because he had some personal shit come up that needed to be dealt with, and I just haven't had the time, honestly. Um, and what little time I did have, I spent investing a lot into like making my little program here look better. Um, Whether it does look better, I guess is subjective, but I think like for my purposes of use, I think like having it be much more interactive like this is very fun. As I said at the top of the video, I am going to have a 417 group discussion live stream happening when this uploads tomorrow, but it'll just be the 9th. Um, I'm hoping to start stream sometime between 12 p.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern time. That is about, 1 to 2 hours after the chapter drops officially. Um, and it's not a hype beast like, oh my god, stream. It's more of just like I'm gonna quick run through the chapter, what happens, and then I'm gonna give my thoughts about it, some theories that I have, and I'm gonna open up the floor to any chatters who want to talk about their theories of what happened and any like group discussions, ideas, whatever pertaining to the chapter itself. And then once that's over, we will move to a larger group discussion just about the arc as a whole, with anybody talking whatever they want. Last time we did it, we had like 50 concurrent viewers at our peak. We had like 40 average. We had a lot of great discussions in chat, a lot of vocal people. It was a lot of fun. Um, I like talking with people about Hunter x Hunter that is not just like dumb, what if this happened fanfic stuff. And we had a lot of really great points, a lot of great fun last time. So if you want some more group discussion, hanging out with some other, hyper Succession War fans, I think that'd be a good place. Also, it's my stream. Obviously, I want you there. And if you haven't liked and comment and subscribed, please do so. I have like, I looked at my YouTube stats, 128% of people that watch me aren't subscribed. So get that number up, folks. But with all that said, I think this is it. I think I have ended the video where I want. And so hope you all have a good rest of your day wherever you are. And hopefully I'll see you in the live stream. Goodbye.